This is TWiT.
Of course, you started Automattic and created WordPress at the height of blogging popularity, but it's kind of gone through a winter since, and yet you've survived. How did you do that?
You know, I'm never sure what the temperature is. People are always saying blogging is at the height or dying. It felt like we were pretty late, actually, because there were dozens and dozens of blogging systems.
Lots of platforms. Yeah.
Blogger had already been bought by Google.
Right.
By the time we started, Dave Weiner had been doing it for 8 or 9 years, with scripting.com. And so y'all should get him on, actually.
Oh, we love Dave. He's probably
to,
listening right now. He's
awesome. Yeah,
Dave is such a pioneer.
Yeah.
And also what I love about Dave, and part of his inspiration to me, was doing it in public, right? So share your thinking, share what you're learning, share your mistakes, share the code you learned, share the project you came across. He has this incredible archive now, going back, I forget when he started, it was in the 90s, I think, of his kind of daily thoughts. And my blog, I'm not blogging as much as I want to or used to, but it's really neat to be able to go into those archives and see, what I come across. It's the number one reason I think people should journal a blog. And I know that that's part of why we bought Day One, is because journaling, Day One is basically local encrypted blogging for journaling. Publishing does have an additional, what do you call it? Risk or something. People are more worried to publish than ever, because you can have mobs, you can be attacked. If you mess up, you can get in trouble. But it is also where the most beauty comes from, I think.
That's one way the blogging has changed. The world has changed. A lot of blogs no longer use comments because that's a place you can get rolled. I think the advent of Twitter, I'll speak for myself, but I think a lot of people stopped blogging long form.
It ruined me.
Yeah, it ruined us for blogs.
I could get rid of a thought.
140 character blogs.
Right. Yeah.
Twitter now has Twitter Notes too, right? The long form.
Yeah.
You think, and of course, and then Ev went off and did Medium, and so there is. I think long form. I like long form, but I think it also looks. Maybe we're just reading the temperature wrong, but it looks like people aren't willing to spend that much time reading anymore.
Do you think long form is a generational kind of thing?
Yeah.
Because everything is such a short attention span nowadays. I still think long form has a place. I mean, we still have mediums and stuff like
People
that.
People still subscribe to the New Yorker for some reason, but
right. But I wonder if that's just a generational gap now.
Yeah.
Part of why we bought long reads and run a magazine called Atavist as well, which only publishes once per month. Super long pieces, usually 15, 20,000 words or more. So, I mean, when the phones first came out, people were like, no one's going to create on this. No one's going to spend time on this. But it turns out, especially as the screens got better, we're always connected. There's a lot of found time. And so people do read. I would say there's probably more reading happening now than ever before. Video is enticing, right? We're doing it now. Some people are watching this right now instead of reading. So the live interaction, short form videos, TikTok, obviously very compelling. But there's something that sort of ignites your imagination when you read that isn't replicable in any other medium, at least that I've experienced.
I have, I'm not turning this into a plug, but I have a book coming out next year called The Gutenberg Parenthesis. And so we share an idol in that name. And at the end of it, I say that I was wrong to think that the book as a form should be updated. Let the book be the book. However, as I've thought about other forms of media, I think the other forms of media are largely evanescent, that magazines have their time and then many go away. That's not to say there aren't thousands of magazines the way there are.
A lot of books are ephemeral
blogs.
as well. I mean, let's face it.
Right. But as a form, I'm starting to wonder about the magazine as a form. The newspaper as a form
it's going away.
Just is not economically viable anymore, to put it in print.
And physically, you mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So I think we tie ourselves too much with presumptions of old forms. And I still love the book, and I still love reading books, and I have many around me, and I think it will continue. But I think that we go to other forms. The magazine was started, in the U.S., they started taking off in 1850 with steam-powered presses. The newspaper similarly with steam-powered presses. We got to that mechanization and scale. So I guess it's a long preamble to a question about people probably presume that in WordPress, people are making, to use old terms, articles or stories or things like that. What are the exciting uses of the tool you've created that you see to go beyond what we knew?
Yeah, there's an interesting tension right now in the WordPress community because there is, and about actually half the signups we get to WordPress.com are bloggers. So people blogging, as that is traditionally understood. And then the other half is people building websites on it.
The White House was on WordPress for a long time.
Whitehouse.gov. It is today.
It still is.
Whitehouse.gov.
Okay.
And we're actually running that infrastructure, knock on wood.
Wow.
They switched over to our, we have this enterprise service called WPVIP, which is basically like bulletproof WordPress. Like we can rail and scale it, anything. And that switched right before the Ukraine war started. So all the Kremlin sites went down. White House stayed up. I was very happy.
Whoa.
To kind of your original question, though, actually, I lost it. What was the question?
Well, just kind of what. I'll do another.
Well, let me add to your question.
Let me just try.
Okay.
Let me just try for 1 second. The essay and the novel and the newspaper were invented a century and a half after movable type, and it was then people said, "Oh, wow, what can I do with this thing?" So I wonder, since you watch the WordPress ecosystem, what you're seeing about creation with it that's exciting you, or that you see glimmers of a future that goes beyond the analogs we know of magazines and newspapers and so on.
Question. So what I'm trying to do, actually, funnily enough, with our new version of the editor is called Gutenberg.
Yes, so I know well. I use it every day.
Sharing the shared idle. It was actually really neat at the WordCamp. I just went to, some people brought me some gifts from the Gutenberg Museum, which was really neat. I've never visited there, so I definitely
should go. You must go. You must go.
What I'm trying to do is, right now, social networks in particular are forcing people into very generic forms. You can't have really expressive layouts or be weird. They kind of make all the profiles look the same. It's very much like I don't know, it feels like a Soviet housing block sometimes. People do interesting stuff inside the box, but I want to make it a lot easier for people to do outside the box layout, design, content creation, and build both sides of it. So with Gutenberg, we have the editor that allows you to create like really rich widgets, embed maps, layouts, put things left and right. And actually, I just talked to DM'd with Dave Weiner about this other day. Is I want to do a reader as well that supports these rich formats, so that you can follow things and actually read it as the creator intended.
The creator not being the man upstairs, but the person who created it. But you also own Tumblr, which is interesting because Tumblr was created almost as an anti-WordPress, where it's more like the original blogs, Tumblogs, and I don't know, I can't remember. Did David Karp create Tumblr before WordPress, or did you create it after WordPress, or WordPress after Tumblr?
It started a little later, maybe 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
Tumblr was our very best competitor.
Yeah, because it was so easy to create.
It was
a blog.
different too.
Yeah. And it was very quick hit, as you still is, which is interesting. I'm really glad you acquired it, because I think it was not in good hands, and I really think it's an important platform for somebody who doesn't want to spend that time.
I almost don't want to tell people about it. Like, we're having so much fun on Tumblr right now. Like, it's actually quite fun to use. It's my favorite social network by far, and I really like Twitter. It's a very generative space. It's all about art and artists,
right?
And so you can just go there and kind of put on different identities. It's almost like the Burning Man of social networks. you can really kind of be free when you're on Tumblr.
Right.
Matt, what do you think about the state of the net? We just had legislation stopped for now in the Senate. Protection is for newspapers. We see the California regulations that are going to be very complicated. We all read Mike Masnick here, and he takes us through the complications. There's a lot of moral panic about the state of the net. What's your prescription for where it is?
I guess this also brings us back to asking about Blue Sky. Running a social network and running internet is really, really, really hard. So remember, I refer to that, it's nice to have the human systems built in. One of the things we did put a ton of effort into Tumblr once we bought it was cleaning it up. There was a lot of hate speech on there. There's a lot of kids, talking about self-harm or drugs or other things. And you can't, you need to garden the space. You need to curate it to create a healthy space. And the tension between that and the legality of freedom of speech, and also the popular understanding of freedom of speech, is kind of a beautiful tension. And I think that we're always going to have companies in there and organizations. I don't think we'll ever have a technical solution to this because it's fundamentally a human problem.
Mm-hmm. On that point, I know it's still controversial about Tumblr because some people want to do certain things that aren't legit there now. But I do salute you because I think that, yes, we have to invest in those spaces. And if we abandon them or leave it to others, then we know what's going to happen. We can know that well. What was the investment? What was the investment at the beginning? What's the ongoing investment? Just in terms of scale of effort to keep Tumblr sociable and usable and nice.
Yeah. So our big push right now is to get Tumblr to break even because it's burning $40 or $50 million per year.
Yikes!
And its cost to run above what it makes. And
because of this kind of
that's
social
why we've been
effort.
launching some subscriptions, some products where users can blaze their posts to promote it. Just different things to try to get it to break even. But it is growing. It is really popular, especially with youth in America. And so I think there's a real potential there. But gosh, I have so much empathy for the Dorseys and Zuckerbergs of the world. Running a social network is darn hard.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why you almost don't want to tell people about Tumblr because if the masses invade, then that doubles, quadruples
or exploit.
Yeah, your problems with it. How do you make money? Is there advertising or is it paid subscription?
Yeah, so we have ads on Tumblr. I would say, advertising is the default social media business model. So we have that as a base layer, but what we're trying to do is create something new on top of it. So we have an upgrade to turn off the ads. We have upgrades where users can promote their own things. So you can pay, $20 and put a picture of your cat in front of 100,000 people. Right. You can, there's upgrades for fun stuff, like to put these dancing crabs on your dashboard. So we're trying to, and we're selling actual physical goods. The most popular being shoelaces, actually, because there's a long-standing meme on Tumblr
shoelaces.
About what? You ask about the shoelaces and you say, "Oh, I stole them from the president" or something. And the shoelaces, we have not been able to keep them on the shelf. So through a combination of merchandise, retail, digital goods, physical goods, we are really grinding to get Tumblr back into profitability.
So I'm going to pay for it now. $5 a month or $40 a year. I'm paying for it.
Right now?
Yeah. I've always, you need a little chime in your office. I've had a real soft spot for Tumblr. And the reason I brought it up is because it is I also have a WordPress account. I also have a blog. I actually have a self-hosted static blog on Hugo. I've gone through so many blogging platforms, but I never write anymore. And I feel like Tumblr is kind of the antithesis of the long form. It's it's fun, it's quick, it's a lot more in a way like Reddit. I want to see Tumblr succeed. I'm so glad you guys bought it.
It's less of a treadmill than Instagram too.
Right.
I've got to get more. I've got to be bigger. No, this is what I love about blogs so much is that it's the ability to have my place, and the ability to use that however you want then. Rather than, and I like social media. I love Twitter. I deal with Facebook, but there's what I miss about blogging and I teach students this every year, is it was that first moment when I had a blog post and somebody linked to me and I linked back to them and I said, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
And somebody else used their space to talk with me, and I used my space to talk with them. And that changed my entire view of media, my entire view of journalism, my career, my life, everything was the link in the blog.
Well,
And it's still here.
To that end, I mean, we used to have all of that. How do you feel about web mentions, web hooks, things like that? Some of the newer stuff that people like Kevin Marks are doing.
Love it.
Yeah.
Kevin Marks, Tontex Chelik, Simon Willison, Eric Meyer. These sort of web builders are good folks to follow to see what could be around the corner. Alex Russell, another good person to follow.
Because that's what we want to get back to, is this kind of community, right? No matter what platform you're using.
I actually have a big project for it, working on the rest of the year, is to see what we can do to reinvigorate comments.
Oh,
the commenting interface, making it really
as I said,
easy
a lot of people have turned off comments. Because
so what do you think that takes then to do it well?
I think there's two things. One, you need to have a really smooth flow for like logging in and commenting. I love that WordPress has moderation by default so that it's a curated space. And then on the other end, you need the feedback loop. So notifications. So knowing when, notifying the blogger when someone comments, notifying the commenter when someone replies to their comment, that you just have to close that whole interaction loop. And I think it could be pretty exciting, because if you look at what's happening on like Discord, Reddit, like so much on the web, people want to talk to each other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we're not really happy with Facebook. There needs to be a better way than Facebook. Is I guess what I'm saying.
I heard
you're being very diplomatic, Matt, so I won't press
I actually like Facebook.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah. There you go.
All right, there's one among us.
There's two.
Facebook ads have gotten so good. They are hyper targeting me now. It's like scary. It's like the exact artists that I like. They're promoting the art to me, and like they know I can spend more, and like so it's actually like expensive. It's kind of crazy how
I had to stop doing Instagram. I'd spend money every night. About 4 a.m, I'd look at Instagram and buy whatever the first thing it was that I saw. I was completely vulnerable.
Of the internet age
I was completely vulnerable to it. So
you were going to say something?
You mentioned Tumblr being a social network. I never really saw it as a social network. I just see it as a platform. But everything you're describing sounds just like a social network. Do you feel like Tumblr is in competition with the likes of Twitter or Facebook and working to try to draw more people in? Or do you just feel like, okay, we're still just a platform where people can create content regardless of whatever is going on in the social media space?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's actually kind of orders of magnitude. So like Facebook's 3 billion, Twitter's 300 million, Tumblr's like 30 million. So it's like 1/10 the size of Twitter, but with like 1/80th or something the number of employees. There's 200 people working on Tumblr right now. Right. It's totally a social network. And the thing is, it's a social network that you really have to work at for it to be good. So that's what we're trying to fix, because if you just sign up for it, you really have to curate who you're following and follow tags and kind of prune things. And it takes a little bit to learn how to use. But then once you become a pro user, I think one of the stats we track is like how many people log in 6 out of 7 days. We have, hundreds and hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of folks who are like really totally into the service and superpower users of it.
That's why I think it's web mentions and all that are very important, because the internet's like space. It's big, really big, and there's plenty of room for all of this. But you don't want silos. I like the Fediverse. I like Mastodon, because you'd like some porosity in these things, so that people who use Tumblr can interact with people who use Facebook, can interact with people who use Twitter. I feel like that's what people want, but it's not what corporations want. How can we make it more what people want?
I think people are very quick to trade off freedom for convenience.
Yeah.
So I think the challenge to all of us who are trying to create this more open, federated, democratic free web is to make the user experience so compelling that people will choose it. And they don't have to care about the plumbing underneath being free or not free. But if we can make the free version better, then I think we'll win. And that was really the thing I realized very early on, because I kind of started off being like, oh, I'm just going to preach open source. And once people understand open source, they will definitely choose WordPress.
Yeah, it'll be obvious. Yeah.
And then I very quickly learned, like, no, they don't really care. Like, they say, you don't want to drill, you want a hole in the wall. Like, they're just trying to solve some problem. They're trying to have a presence on the web. That's not even the problem. They're probably trying to get more people in their restaurants or more readers to their writing or something. And so I was like, well, if we want the web to be more open, we're going to have to get really, really good at making user experience. So that's been our focus, still is today.
You're still a open source
100%.
Yeah, promoter. Yeah.